Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Third down and 6 for the Chiefs at their own 46. 14-7 Kansas City. 4 minutes deep into the third quarter. Wide blitz coming, and a pass is going to be intercepted off a deflection off Tony. Coming back to the near side, this is going to be a pick six for the Detroit Lions. A pick six by rookie Brian Branch of Alabama off the arm of Kadarius Toney. And the Lions can tie the game with a defensive score. And for Andy Reid and the Chiefs, it will only be the second loss in the opening game of the season for Andy Reid as a Chiefs head coach. The other one was in 2014 in a loss to the Tennessee Titans. But the Lions, as expected, to be a team to be dealt with in the NFC, played to that reputation tonight. And the Chiefs, without Travis Kelce and a bevy of young wide receivers, and we saw, I think, the lack of experience tonight maybe come to fruition, Danon. A lot of drops, and they get a victory beating the Chiefs here at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. Detroit 21, Kansas City 20. Again, only the second loss in the opening week of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs in the Andy Reid era. And the Lions get the victory 21-20.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily, the first Friday of the full football season, and we follow it with the opening of the NFL season. The Chiefs lost to the Lions. So much to get to in that game. Welcome in, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here with you on this Friday edition. Paul Savage will be in hour number 2 as we'll make our first round of picks for the year. We'll preview the high school football night coming up with Matt Henderson of CatchAKansas.com a little later. We'll take your calls, your reactions on that IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Of course, the IHOP hotline brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy 4 new sweet and savory biscuit options. We have giveaways to get to today. We'll give away some movie tickets, some HTO, and some other things. So look for your chances to win there as we make our way into the first reaction Friday, I guess we could call it, Tommy, because there's a lot to react to with the Chiefs. No Travis Kelce last night. It showed. No Chris Jones. It showed. And the Chiefs fall to the Lions. Credit to the Lions for going and getting the win. I don't think it was a lucky win. I don't think it was anything like that. I think the Lions, came into Arrowhead and proved that they belong.
I mean, clearly a lot of issues that, we're going to get to and discuss throughout the course of this program today with Kansas City. I think that, more than anything else, you come away from that game feeling really let down with everything that has gone on throughout the offseason, with the fact that it was the banner raising ceremony to celebrate the Super Bowl champion team and all of that. And then you come out, you have a lead at halftime, you have a lead into the third quarter, and then all of a sudden things kind of fall apart for you. Disappointed, let down, all of that. And I think that now, with one game under our belts, there are some significant questions that I've got, at least. I don't know about you, but some significant questions that I have regarding this team, specifically the offense, and just kind of how I wonder, how this team is going to move forward, because I do think that these are some issues that are not just one-off opening game night jitter type things. Like, I think that there are some legitimate issues that need to be addressed.
I actually think that it might be some one-off things. What I don't want to do today is overreact to what we saw last night. And it was, I did this in jest, and I think you were in jest back when you acted like I was serious. Maybe you really thought. I joked last night after the game that my initial thought was that Jared Goff is pretty good. And he was, credit to him. Like, he followed up last year with a really strong performance. But it's just because, like, I don't want to sit here. Like, I'm looking right now. And of course, I know this is coming. Every headline. How concerned are you with the Chiefs? Should the Chiefs be worried? All these things. You don't want to lose home games. And in a tight AFC, you don't want to lose any games. Okay. So I don't want to downplay the loss either. But they had to totally change everything late in the week with Travis Kelce getting hurt. That was clearly a factor. Noah Gray looked fine, but Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. I think we knew that the young receiver room was young, and that proved itself out. But, a big problem were drops, obviously. Kadarius Toney was awful. He hasn't practiced all summer. That factors in. He's, the emotions of the game are a part of what he does, and I think it got the best of him. Mahomes missed a couple of throws. Again, young receivers changing the game plan last minute. Other guys drop passes. We saw Jerick McKinnon drop a pass. Jerick McKinnon doesn't drop passes. So I don't want to overreact either to anything. I think we saw what the Chiefs are ultimately, what they're going to do this year. And that's target about 1,000 different receivers in every game. Like, we expected that to happen. I thought it took a little too long to get Sky Moore involved. And then he had the big 4th down play where he probably could have caught that ball and he didn't make a catch. So I think a lot of that stuff snowballed on them. I would suspect in game 2, we don't see that kind of stuff. But I will say, with a lot of these young receivers, remember how much that, punt returns, for instance, got in Sky Moore's head early last year. So now we got to think about all these young receivers and, like, how long does this game stick in their heads, right? And do they get any of the yips because of this? That would be my only concern. It's less of a concern because I assume Travis Kelce's back next week. But, as far as, like, what we saw in the game being, like, systematic concerns for this team, I don't think that was the case. I think that they dropped some passes. Mahomes missed a couple of throws. They made a few mistakes, and the Lions were there to capitalize because the Lions are a pretty good team.
I mean, I'll take it a step further and say that where my concerns are moving forward is that, I've been fairly, I think, optimistic throughout the course of the offseason about the quote unquote unproven wide receiver room. Like, that's the word that I've used multiple times, unproven. And that's really a nice way, I think, of saying that we don't know anything about them. We have no idea if they're going to be any good or not. And they weren't last night. And, there was a pursuit during the offseason for DeAndre Hopkins that didn't end up happening for Kansas City. And I think, and I'm not saying that DeAndre Hopkins needs to be on that roster, but what I am saying is that what Patrick Mahomes really missed last night, and again, it's a lot because Travis Kelce was not in the game, but having a reliable target to go after. And they're really outside of Travis Kelce. I mean, you can talk about the talent level, the physical attributes, the potential ceiling of guys like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, you name it. I mean, anybody in that wide receiver room, you can talk about how great they could be, but none of them are reliable. And really, even if they had made all the catches last night, I think we would still say we don't know if they're reliable or not, because there just isn't a proven wide receiver, maybe, I guess, outside of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he does a certain number of things, but he's not going to be a number one guy.
He's not really going to command 6 or 7 targets a game.
Right. There really isn't outside of Travis Kelce. And that's where, that's really where the issue lied last night. And I think that it's going to, even with Travis Kelce in the game, like, assuming that he's going to be playing moving forward, that's going to help. I mean, he's going to be that safety valve for Patrick Mahomes. But I think that there are still real legitimate concerns about when you need a first down, when you need yardage, when you need a wide receiver to come through. Who do you trust?
So, when we talk about guys who command the ball and demand targets and those kinds of things, that's like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm glad he's on this team. Right. He gives them a little bit of experience, and he does a couple, like, the things that he does them well. He's fine. The two guys that have to step up and be good are the two guys that the Chiefs have. Well, I guess there's 3, but I'm not expecting it out of Rashee Rice yet. I mean, he had the nice, drive there, but it's Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Those guys collectively, Tommy, 1 catch on 8 targets. Okay. Yep. So that is where the problem with the room lies, because those are the 2 guys that need to be leading the way. I don't care what the depth charts look like early and all of these things. Those are their 2 guys this year. And depending on how quickly Rashee Rice can come along, which is almost never quickly in Andy Reid's system, like, those are the 2 guys that have to be there. And Kadarius Toney, absolutely. let the team down. Like, he was not good at all. And he had some opportunities to make some big plays. They can't have that. Sky Moore, for whatever reason, they didn't start to target. I mean, I don't think he had a target until the third quarter, maybe, Tom. It was so, and I don't know, everything was quick hitting too. So I can't see, I haven't watched the all 22. So I don't know, was he getting open quickly? Were the plays just not designed for him? I don't know what happened, but they got rid of the ball pretty quick. There weren't a lot of downfield developing plays in the game. So I don't know what to make of that, but I do know that in some of the critical spots last night, Travis Kelce obviously makes a difference, right? That his absence was immense, as we knew it would be. And again, I think it's different if he gets hurt 2 days earlier in practice. It was the timing of everything. He got hurt 3 days before a game. You have to change everything last minute because especially in this spot where Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are so good, because they script so much of what happens early, you had to throw all of that out the window with Travis Kelce's injury. That also isn't easy on young receivers.
I do have a concern that, that I know we discussed it during the offseason. We discussed it when DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Titans and didn't go to Kansas City, about how, all right, is this wide receiver room that we think it's probably going to be like, the players that are going to be in this room, do we feel confident in them? Do we feel comfortable in them? Or do we feel like the Chiefs are settling for the group of wide receivers that they have? And I don't know about you, and I don't want to speak for you. I talked myself into this idea of, all right, the talent level is there and the ceiling is really high and they're exciting and they're young and they might surprise some folks or whatever. When really at the end of the day, and I know, again, the sample size is small, it's one game, I've got no confidence in anybody outside of Travis Kelce catching the football in a critical moment, in a critical big stage moment, when you've got to move the chains, when you've got to go on a game-winning drive, when it's late in the game, national TV, prime time, all of that stuff. Again, I asked the question, who do you go to? Because if Travis Kelce,
you go to the two guys who made huge plays in the Super Bowl, right? Tony and Sky Moore made big plays, critical plays, don't win the Super Bowl kind of plays on that stage. They're going to be okay. That's what I mean. Now their roles are amplified. They probably felt I don't want to say they felt more pressure than they did in the Super Bowl. That's a silly thing to say. But we've seen those two guys specifically, Tommy, help the Chiefs win a Super Bowl by making big plays. So I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about their youth. That I am worried about, because the youth I thought showed last night when, at a moment's notice, hey guys, everything we've literally been working for all offseason, we got to change it. Kelce's out. We got to change what we're doing. Here's what's going to happen. And I thought, that part of it is where we don't know things. The Chiefs have invested in wide receiver. They've taken receivers in the top 2 rounds the last 2 years and went and traded for Kadarius Toney, a former first rounder. They've invested in the position. Now it's just, you have to play a lot with Mahomes. He has to trust you. I would like to imagine the same 4th and 20 scenario, and we'll get into all of that stuff too as we make our way through reaction to the Chiefs game, that throw on that play in week 8, Sky Moore and Patrick Mahomes are just a tick more on the same page. He makes that catch and the Chiefs pick up the first down. That's what the optimistic take is, right?
That's the optimistic take.
With that time, right? With some time to work. Because the thing about Sky Moore last year was, he was never a big part of the offense, right? Until the playoffs, and he made his big play, in the biggest moment. He was never really a part of the offense. So this is a new role for him too. And he's talked about that, and the Chiefs have talked about that all offseason, how much more comfortable he is in the offense. Well, there was that moment probably more than the others. Every other play for him, the ball was batted away, whatever. That was the one where you're like, man, that's where you need Mahomes and that guy to be on the same page, right? And it was just that much off, and he jumped a half second too late, and he wasn't quite ready for it. And that Kadarius Toney stuff was just the drops. He just had an awful game, probably the worst he's ever played in his life. I hope that doesn't continue. But I guess I'm not totally counting on him anyway to just be on the field, because he's always hurt. It's that little stuff. But again, to the confidence factor, Tommy, these were Super Bowl winning players. So it's there. It just wasn't there last night. Now the question for me is, like, are these guys wired in the way that they just shake this off no problem? I would bet the answer to that question is yes. Like literally bet it. Like I would bet that they do that. Like I think the offense will bounce back and be fine. But it's there now and it's in their heads. And that's the part we got to see. Like, does this linger more than 1 week? Or
Right.
is that a one-off, no big deal? The circumstances with Kelsey just really made that game a pain in the butt for the Chiefs.
So you gave the optimistic take. Let me give the pessimistic take here for a second. If you look in a crystal ball, and I've been doing this for the last 12 hours or so, Travis Kelsey in less than a month is going to turn 34 years old. And, he's going to be back from his injury, it sounds like, very shortly, but the Chiefs are not going to have him forever. And I had a crystal ball look at what this offense looks like long term without Travis Kelsey on the field in last night's game. Like, I feel like that is a indicator of what that offense could potentially look like in a few years, however long he plans on playing, when he no longer plays football. And again, there's going to be changes. The roster will always turn over. There's always going to be different players, all of that. But there has been, I think, a mentality that when you've got a player the caliber of Patrick Mahomes, as long as there's a Travis Kelsey on the team, you can literally throw anybody else out there at wide receiver and he's going to be okay because he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And he's got an insane weapon in Travis Kelsey, and he always has. Okay, well, someday Travis Kelsey isn't going to be there anymore. Who else you trust? And so I know that we're a ways away from that. And maybe I'm overreacting after one game, the opening game of the season, to start thinking about what things are going to look like when Travis Kelsey finally hangs it up. But I think that there was this prevailing thought, and I don't know if this is coming from Brett Veach or, Andy Reid or whatever this is, where they thought, okay, look, we've got Travis Kelsey. And of course he was injured, but we've got Travis Kelsey. We can throw out really anybody else at wide receiver and it's going to be okay because we have Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey. And I'm not so sure that's a path to success long-term for this organization. So I'm okay with development. I'm okay with, building the trust in guys like Sky Moore and, hopefully Kadarius Toney can bounce back. I mean, I don't know. I get that. I understand all of that. But man, like, it sure would have been nice if there was at least one person last night in that wide receiver room that you could feel confident in.
Well, it's, again, like when Jerick McKinnon is dropping passes, for me, it's just like, just get out of this game. Like, this game has just, like, it's snowballed on them. Number one, for Travis Kelsey, how many games has he missed in the last 10 years?
Just one. I mean, just
right.
Last night. Yeah.
So I'm not going to start thinking about that yet because I don't think it's fair to what we've seen historically. I think he's fine. Like, he tweaked his knee at practice and couldn't get the swelling down. Not that big a deal to me there. I don't know how long he's going to play. I know that people are ready to close the book on Tony Gonzalez and Rob Gronkowski way too early, right? Like, he might play, and Jason Witten for that matter. Like, he might play till he's 40. Who knows? He's a great athlete and he's having fun with his buddies and his friends. So, like, that part of it doesn't worry me. And the other part about, like, big picture, this is the NFL, like, just for the financial reasons, like, this won't be the same group of people it's going to be 2 or 3 years from now, because that's just the way it's always going to be for the Chiefs. And we saw, Tom Brady continue his legacy with about 8 billion different receivers, right? Different variations. So I don't worry about it big picture either. The only thing I worry about right now is that game doesn't carry over to the next game for the young receivers. That's the only thing I'm worried about at this point.
So, Kadarius Toney, I just saw this stat. I know that we can cross our fingers and hope that he bounces back. Since Kadarius Toney has been in the NFL, he's been targeted 83 times. He has 9 drops on 83 targets. That's an 11% drop rate. That is tops in the NFL. There is not another player in the NFL that drops more passes than Kadarius Toney. So we can cross our fingers and say, man, I hope he bounces back after week 1.
I've never thought of Kadarius Toney as the target monster for this offense anyway. I've told you that all off season. He's going to be there, like, not gadget guy. He's more than a gadget guy, but he's not their target monster. That has to be Sky Moore or maybe Rashee Rice. I don't know about Rice yet. He's too young, typically, historically, for that to happen. but that's got to be Skybar. The target monster has to be Moore and Kelsey, obviously. That's not Tony's game, very clearly. Like, Tony needs design plays and all of these things, and he's an interesting guy. Let's come back. We'll hear the Chiefs' reaction to it. I think we have some Andy Reid sound. We have some Patrick Mahomes sound. I do want to tip the cap to the Lions a little bit. I think we both were a little down on them. Do we still stay down on them? We'll talk about that part of it too. Plenty to come here on this edition of Sports Daily. We've got games to pick. We've got high school football to preview, giveaways on the way, all kinds of fun stuff on the program today. Let's do one of our giveaways now because we're locked and loaded in the second hour. Let's do our HTO, Jad. We'll do an iced coffee. A brew house drink from HTO. Most people get iced, but there are hot. Just any coffee or espresso drink and an iced tea. You can get some free coupons for that. HTO located in East Wichita, West Wichita, and coming next week in Derby. 869-1240. First caller. We'll come back. More reaction to Chiefs Lions when Sports Daily returns. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor. We also, by the way, have Wyatt Thompson coming up here in a few minutes for our weekly visit on K-State. We'll look at the Troy game, get a scouting report, perhaps on the Trojans here for week 2. So we'll have that coming up in the next few minutes here. Congratulations to Justin for winning some HDO coffee and tea. Good luck in the rest of our giveaways, which we'll do. Tommy, real quick, as Jad tracks down Wyatt Thompson here for us. Let's go to Wyatt now. Let's get to Wyatt Thompson here, voice of the Kansas State Wildcats.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, we appreciate Wyatt Thompson joining us a couple of minutes later than scheduled because, Wyatt, we're all shook up and trying to react to what happened last night to open the NFL season with the Chiefs. How are you?
Well, I'm good. Boy, you're not alone, right? I mean, there were a lot of things to probably I'm sure Chiefs fans would even admit themselves they're probably a little bit spoiled, but there were a lot of plays you're going to look back on from that game last night, that's for sure.
Well, let's take a momentary pause from that because, as frustrating a game as it was for the Chiefs in their opener, it was just about as good as you could have scripted out for K-State in its opener. I think we saw everything we wanted to see, everything we've talked about the last couple of weeks. We got a sample size and it looked pretty dang good in the opener.
That's well said, because if you look at it really closely, I mean, we saw a veteran quarterback and a leader in Will Howard. We saw the up-and-comer in Avery Johnson. We saw a good run game with the two guys that we thought would probably be the real deal this year, replacing Deuce Vaughn, although they're different and not Deuce Vaughn. They did a great job. Without Keegan Johnson, I was really personally very proud of Jaden Jackson for stepping up, but even more so, RJ Garcia. They need him to be a guy. And that happened. And then the versatility in the offensive line. By their own admission, they didn't play well in the first couple of series, but after that, I think they got it going, really pretty well. And then defensively, I think the kind of the same story. Your stars were shining a little bit. They did play without Marquise Siegel, who will be back. They got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They had a lot of tackles for loss and gave up 6 yards rushing. So it's a pretty good first night. Let's say it that way.
White, I want to dial in a little bit on Avery Johnson. And of course, we know that Will Howard had a really good night, barring, one interception that he had in that opening game. But Avery Johnson, I had this thought as I was watching him in the small sample size in the second half and getting into the end zone and all of that. And I just had this thought that there's going to come a time late in the season, in probably a Big 12 matchup in, October, November, where the Wildcats are going to need the skill set that Avery Johnson possesses. And I've known, obviously we know here he's from Derby and all of that, or from Mays. We know that, but just watching him in that opening game, I thought, man, there's going to come a time where the Wildcats are going to need that talent. And so I know there have been questions about whether or not he was going to redshirt, what that was going to look like. What did you take away from just, watching him and that overall talent on the field?
There were a couple of things that I would probably point out. This is my 22nd year at K-State. I have never seen a first-year player walk onto the field and get an ovation like that at this stadium ever. I was blown away by it, and I think everybody else was too. I think the anticipation for this kid is off the charts, is the point. And I guess up and above and beyond that, I've been saying this all week in a lot of different interviews, that he didn't look like a freshman really in any way, did he? I mean, he just didn't. He looked comfortable. This wasn't a guy where they just trotted him in there and they handed it off, 6 or 8 times and didn't ask him to do anything, right? I mean, he looked like he belonged. He acted like he belonged. You could see the skill set. And I agree with you. There will probably come a time sooner rather than later that, maybe you put him in there when you need something that he can bring to the table. He's got a big arm. He can really run. And all K-Staters are excited about him, and they should be. He's handled this also exceptionally well, I think.
And don't you think, Wyatt, that he's got the guy ahead of him who knows this better than anybody? Like Will Howard has been there before. Like he's been in the exact same situation before to help him prepare for whatever it is that he ends up doing this year. That's got to be a pretty big advantage for, the coaching staff to have Howard there with him too.
I think there are a lot of reasons why K-State is winning a lot of football games these days, and I think it starts with the top, with the head coach and the coaching staff, but also good leadership, and Will is a large part of that. I've said this too. If you go back and listen to what Will Howard said in postgame, he was one of the happiest guys on the team for Avery. And Avery, when he talked to the media, talked about, the work that he's put in, but also the help he's gotten. And one of the guys he mentioned was Will Howard. I just love that. You know what? This game is about competition, and that's all good. Coaches love it. They pray for it. and this young man is I just shake my head at how quick he's done this, and he's still a freshman. He's going to make some mistakes, but he didn't make very many the other night. And I think everybody sees that he belongs, and he's a big part of this football team right now, simply stated.
Wyatt, you mentioned it a couple minutes ago about the two-headed monster and DJ Giddens and Treshaun Ward. Any big takeaways from kind of the way that they split the carries? We know that Ward got into the end zone. Giddens averaged over 8 yards a carry. So definitely both of them effective. You mentioned in different ways. So what are you seeing from the wide receiver, or from the running backs, that is?
Well, that's a good question, because both guys did what they were supposed to do. We saw a little bit more of DJ, but I thought that would be the case just because he's a little more used to the K-State way and knows the offense a little bit better. But I think what Colin Klein has said to me, I think what I would relay to you is even though they're different backs, they do a lot of quality things. And it isn't like one's the big inside runner and one's the outside runner with the burner speed and all of that. There's a little of that there, but I think they're more similar than different, if that makes any sense. And so I think you will see those guys continue to do what they were doing the other night. And I've said this all along since way back when, the spring ball was here. They're going to use those guys together from time to time. And I think that will be a good thing because of the other personnel on the field. That's just the way I see it.
All right, Wyatt, let's look ahead. We don't want to have one of those history repeat itself kind of moments, but this week feels a little like, and it's not going to sneak up on anybody because of Tulane last year. Did it kind of feel like Tulane last year? And we know Tulane ended up being really, really good. I don't know that Troy is that good, but there's certainly a capable, high pedigree, winning history, especially recently program that's coming in now as everybody's riding very high with K-State. How much more prepared do you think they are for this game last year, as it has very obvious parallels to the Tulane situation last year?
Well, yeah, you said that right. I think it's hard not to think about that situation last year, because you are correct that Tulane was, as it turned out, way better than we thought at the time. I think it's accurate to say that K-State has the utmost respect for Troy and what they have done and what they are doing. if you don't take this group seriously, one that's won 12 in a row and the only winning streak in the country that's longer than that is a team called Georgia. So are they as good as Tulane was last year? Well, maybe not, but you know, I've said this through the years, and I believe it to be so. Winning culture is a big deal. These guys are used to winning games, home, road, whatever. I don't necessarily think they are going to be intimidated coming in here, and yet this is a really hard place to play. I think this is just my personal opinion, okay? I don't think at this particular moment they're as good as they were last year, but I think they're a dangerous team, and you better take them seriously.
Yeah, you know, their starting running back is, correct me if I'm wrong here, Wyatt, the number 1 rusher in the country, Kamani Vidal. And so, you know, he's a guy that I've seen comparisons to Adrian Peterson out there, you know, kind of the way that he runs the football. So defensively for Kansas State, how do you prepare against a runner like that?
Well, you have to keep him bracketed in, and you better tackle. I think the tackling thing is probably the most important thing, because he's 5'8" and probably 215-ish, but he has really good balance and he runs exceptionally hard. He's very strong for a man his size. I've watched twice their first game against Stephen F. Austin, and he had a 50-yard reception, a 50-plus yard reception, and a 50-plus yard run, and had 248 rushing yards, a school record. He is somebody that you better take seriously, and they do just enough around him, you know, with the play action stuff, and they've got some big receivers. So I think the question will be, in this environment, can they handle that, and will their offensive line hold up against K-State's pressure? K-State, though, has to get some pressure on the quarterback. And if they don't, it could be a game on, honestly. You have to take them seriously because they're well coached and they're used to winning games.
All right, Wyatt. So, you know, we've scouted them. We've got it ready. It's an early kick time. I suppose that doesn't, you know, do a lot. It's the first time you've done that with some new faces, but no concern there. You guys get the call going at 9 a.m. So certainly different than the prime time last week, maybe a little different routine this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked to Coach Kleiman about that on the radio show the other night, if some of the folks listening heard that, because I don't think it affects the guys like, you know, DJ Giddens and Will Howard and Daniel Deuce Green and people like that. But it will be a little different animal for the very young guys who made their debut last week, because Coach even talked about this, you know, last Saturday got long because it wasn't kicked off until a couple of minutes after 6 o'clock. This will be a whole different deal. I think they'll handle it okay because the veteran guys on this team will fight through it, but that's the hard part about, I always have felt like, right, wrong, or indifferent, that the 11 a.m. games are better for the road team because they're on the road anyway. They're up and going. Home teams, it's more like everybody wants to tailgate and you know, all those kind of things. And I don't mean that from the players' perspective. Just kind of, they better be excited about this team, and I think the fans will be pumped up to watch them again. Don't you? I just think.
Oh yeah, and the win streak gives you a very tangible thing
Yeah.
to snap. The win streak. Hey, we can snap a win streak, right? Like you get that part of it's pretty easy. All right, so the early kick means an early call for you guys in the 9 a.m. broadcast here on KFH. What can people expect this week in that pregame, and any special things in the broadcast as we get ready for round 2 here with the Wildcats on KFH?
Well, I'm looking forward to some of Stan's breakdown of this team that's probably going to be a lot more in-depth than what we've talked about here. I think I would start certainly with that. I did have a chance to visit with RJ Garcia this week. I'm going to feature him as one of our player interviews. I think people, as they get to know him better, they're going to find out that this young man and Will Howard are very close. They're roommates. They have a very good presence together. I think this kid has a chance to have a really good season. So I would highlight that part too. That's just a couple of things. That couple of hours flies by. Hope everybody can, as they're making their way in and or, you know, running around town. Hope they're able to listen in.
Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats here. Wyatt, we appreciate it. I can't wait for this one. I've been looking forward to this game because it is sort of a revenge for Tulane last year factor, and I want to see the Wildcats get a good test here.
Yeah, and I think they will. That's well said. You really want a good test here because next week probably will even be harder. You got an SEC team on the road. You kicked them around here last year. They're not thinking about that, but most of the rest of us are, right? So you want to lay some good tracks, so to speak, for this week to get cooking for next.
All right, Wyatt Thompson joins us. You'll hear the call beginning at 9 a.m. Wake up, get the breakfast going. We'll get some Wildcats football at 11 o'clock. Wyatt, good luck this week on the call, and we will talk to you again next week with all the reaction.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
There goes Wyatt Thompson, voice of the K-State Wildcats. Boy, that's it's going to be a good test. I'm really excited about that game. You'll hear it here. We'll react to it here. We'll pick it coming up in our next hour when we make our first picks of the season. Let's take a quick break. That's coming up at the top of the second hour. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. A little bit more reaction on the Chiefs. We'll look ahead to all kinds of things this weekend. We'll get a little preview of the high school calendar today as well in the second hour. Lots of stuff still here to come. Let's give away some movie tickets, Jad, on the way out. We'll do Expendables 4, action movie fans. This is the Stallone, Jason Statham group where all the old guys are out there kicking tail. You can get a special advanced screening of Expendables 4 Thursday night at 7. Oh, that's Thursday, September 21st at Boulevard Theaters in Town West. Second caller can get some tickets there, 869-1240. Good luck, everybody. We'll come back. More reaction right after this. right, Tommy, let's finish the hour here. Congratulations to Mark, by the way, for winning those movie tickets. Thanks to Boulevard Theaters at Town West for providing that. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor here. K-State preview with the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson. If you missed that, you can go back and listen to kfhradio.com. Chiefs, Tommy, we started with the Chiefs. We'll continue this here a little bit and then some into hour number 2. The decisions late in the game, I thought the fourth down play calls, the calls to go for it, I have absolutely no issue with, including the 4th and 20. That's a more progressive style that I quite frankly agree with. Number one, because David Montgomery looked good and you don't have Chris Jones. I would have gone for it too. The play calls on the 4th and shorts, I'm not going to criticize Andy Reid, who's really good at that for his play calls. I don't like going backwards when you need to go forward in general terms, but it's hard to sit here and criticize the guy that we call the mastermind and all these things because a couple of things didn't go the right way. But yeah, I'd like to go forward, not backwards when I need a yard.
Yeah, the Chiefs have a really difficult time on like 4th and short situations, even 3rd and short situations. That they are anti quarterback sneak, that they do not want to put Patrick Mahomes in that situation. That's very, very clear. They attempted jet sweeps and things like that didn't work to try to convert. I would imagine that this offense feels more comfortable and confident when it's like 3rd and 17 versus 3rd and 1. That's just kind of the way that they operate. And so like even early in the game, there was a penalty that the Lions accepted, that Dan Campbell accepted, and it basically gave the Chiefs an extra down, and it was a long distance, and the Chiefs were able to convert. I feel at least more confident in them converting something like that than like a 4th and short type situation. There were a couple times that I wondered if the Chiefs missed having Eric Bieniemy there on the sideline as the offensive coordinator. And I don't know. I don't exactly know the way that all plays out. You've got Matt Nagy there as the offensive coordinator. Andy Reid is, of course, going to be the mastermind behind all of that. But there were a couple of play calls that I thought, man, I wonder if it would have been different if Eric Bieniemy was on the sideline.
Andy Reid makes those calls. Like, I think that was part of Eric Bieniemy's, issue to get to a head coach anyway, is those are always Andy Reid's calls. So Matt Nagy, fine. But here's what I don't think happens in those situations, Tommy. Andy Reid says, all right, let's go for it. Matt Nagy, give me a play. No, I don't think that's how it works with the Chiefs. I think he says, here's the play we're going to run. Yep. Right. And most of the work Matt Nagy does probably comes before the game. But either way, again, these all feel like short-term problems for me. I don't have a lot of long-term issues. The one thing I'll say long-term that I did take away from the game, the Lions showed me something for sure last night, because there were lots of chances that game could have got away from them, right? When the Chiefs, until that pick 6, it looked like the Chiefs were about to start piling up some points and everything. And they took that, and they were still able to make the plays that they needed to make. That's a good sign for them, I think, to continue that momentum from last year. So that would be the bigger picture takeaway for me.
I don't know. I'm still not fully sold on the Lions. I mean, they scored a touchdown after a fake punt, and then they got a pick 6. So 14 of their 21 points came out after a fake punt and then a pick 6.
That fake punt,
was gifted to them.
The touchdown after the fake punt came like 80 yards later on a long drive. It wasn't.
I get it, but they had stalled out completely. I mean, it was a 3 and out before that fake punt. And then, they got some momentum there. I think that they're a fine team. Again, I don't think that they're terrible by any means. I just don't think that they're incredible. I
don't think they're incredible.
I thought they were okay last night, but I don't think that they're this, big time NFC conference contender by any means.
That still has to be proven out. But what I think they showed is they are changing the DNA of the franchise to a winning, respectable team. And when we talk about the Lions, that's a pretty big achievement, because, man, they've been the opposite of that for pretty much my whole life. And I do think their attitude and their, grit, or whatever silly adjective we want to use, it feels like they have that stuff. And Jared Goff keeps proving the doubters wrong. He's looked good now for a year and a game. So we'll get more into that in hour number 2. When we come back, we're going to make some picks. We'll look at the college week. We'll look at the rest of the NFL week here on Sports Daily. Paul Savage will join us. We'll make those picks. We'll talk a little bit about high school football in the next hour and more on the Chiefs. It's all coming. Hour number 2 of Sports Daily with Albracht and Castor next. All right, we are jam-packed on a Friday. If you missed anything with our conversation with Wyatt Thompson in the first hour, voice of the Wildcats, looking ahead to Troy, looking back on the SEMO game, you can go back to KFH Radio, listen to that. Welcome in here to hour number 2. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing, Paul Savage coming in to make some picks. We appreciate you listening to us here on KFH. We appreciate you watching us on our video streams on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, thanks to the emails that we've gotten in reaction to some of the Chiefs. We'll try to get to that as well, the comments, everything. This is a wild Friday, as if you're watching on the video stream, Paul Savage pops in now. Fellas, picks are here. Jad, are we imagining things like, did Paul win last year? Did he hang on to that? I don't remember anything.
Well, let me just put it this way. Jad, go ahead. Go ahead and answer the question.
I was going to answer the question by saying Paul absolutely won it. In fact, he kind of won it early on and sort of cruised to a victory. Jacob was out fairly early, and really nobody could catch up to Paul.
I like to use the word domination. Would that be accurate, Jad? Domination?
I would say domination.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, and by the way, I haven't gotten my Super Bowl ring yet. I mean, Jostens has not, delivered my ring. Jacob, would you check on that over the weekend for me, please?
Yeah, I will. I'll get you a trophy. Don't worry about that. I'll get you something.
Something. There you go.
All right, we'll get you a plaque. I'll get you a plaque with a big old picture of my butt on it, Paul. How about that? You can hang it right over your fireplace.
I'm going to live with the rest of the day. Jiminy Chris. And by the way, Tommy, what's this Detroit Lion crap you're spewing? Wasn't it me, if I'm not mistaken, who I said about a year ago after Hard Knocks featured the Detroit Lions that this was a team coming up. This was a team that was going to go places. How much did I like Dan Campbell? I believe I liked him a lot. He's old.
You do.
I mean, something. I swear to gosh, I can't leave you guys on a radio show for one day by yourselves without having to do a little bit of correction.
Pick Detroit. We'll give you chances to pick Detroit.
Team.
Not this week.
They're fine. They're fine. They're good. I'll give them that. They're good. They're not great. They're not. And until they prove to me that they are, I'm going to stick by that. I think they're a fine football team. They got the win last night. I'm not ready to crown them.
They're going to become America's team is what's going to happen.
Wow, that is insightful. I think
just
you're
everybody
exactly
loves
right.
Dan Campbell, and the Lions have sucked forever. I mean, that's all it is.
And he's one of the few throwbacks of old school football. The guy is an old-fashioned football coach. And there's still a place in the world for those kind of guys, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel, they're having success, these old school guys. Andy Reid's an old school guy.
That's right.
All right, let's get into the picks here because we got 10 games. We'll do this just like we did last year. We'll pick typically anyway, 5 games from the college world, 5 games from the NFL world. Of course, these all go against the spread. We're not making this easy. It's incredibly difficult. Paul is the defending champion. We can officially put that in the rearview mirror and throw it in the trash and never talk about it again because it is a new year. It is 2023. Here we go. Jad's always got the receipts on it. Jad, hit the music. Let's make some picks. Paul, you're the defending champ. You get to go first.
Attaboy.
Up first this week is KU. They're 3-point favorites tonight against Illinois. We don't really know about Jalen Daniels yet. Last week, we learned you don't know about Jalen Daniels until the first snap of the game because everyone thought he was going to start and he didn't play at all. KU -3 at home. What do you think?
This is a tough one. I don't know that Illinois is very good either. And I just don't know enough about KU. The Jalen Daniels thing is a little bit of a worry. If he was playing, I think this would be a no-brainer. But on the other hand, if he was sure he was going to play, it wouldn't be -3. This is a tough one. And just because I know Tommy, know him like the back of my hand on this pick, Tommy's going to take KU. I'm taking Illinois.
Okay. Paul's got Illinois in the points. Tommy, you finished second last year. You can go second on this. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at what a middle-of-the-road Big 12 team potentially in KU versus a middle-of-the-road potentially Big 10 team in Illinois. So I like the matchup a lot. I mean, I think we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams tonight. Illinois' got a pretty salty defense. They struggled offensively for a majority of the game last week against Toledo before coming around and winning the game overall. That being said, though, I think Jalen Daniels plays. I think he starts. I think he's effective. And I think that they've got the majority of their offense healthy. It looks like Luke Grimm is going to play. I like the running backs at KU. I think the Jayhawks win, and I think they cover. I'm going to take them, and I'll go ahead and give the points.
Yeah, Toledo put up 28 on Illinois last week. Illinois has also got a short week to deal with. KU does not. KU played Friday last week, played Friday this week, so they're not dealing with that. They're at home. I'll take KU too. I really do think if Jalen Daniels was fully healthy here, I think this number would be, maybe around a touchdown. So it's sort of an opportunity for KU too. I'll take KU and give the points here. As much as anything, I don't buy into Illinois much.
I don't either.
So I'll take the Jayhawks and give the 3 points there at home as Illinois comes in on a short week. Troy and K-State. K-State, we talked about this with Wyatt Thompson. I don't think we'll have a Tulane sabotage factor of last year, even though Tulane turned out to be really good. So it wasn't totally a sabotage. Tommy, you'll be up first here. 16.5 points, a pretty big number against a team that hadn't lost in a long time.
Yeah, I like the Wildcats a lot, and I think they're going to win the game. I'm just not sure that they're going to cover 16.5. I mean, Troy is a completely different opponent than SEMO was a week ago against Kansas State. They've got a great running back in Vidal. They've got a filthy defense, Troy does. And so that being said, I think 16.5 is a little bit too big for my liking. The Wildcats win, but I think Troy covers. I'm going to take them plus 16.5.
Here's what happens for me, and this happened last year with K-State too a lot. I think people undersell their defense, and it helps them cover numbers. So the defensive performance last week for K-State makes me feel better about a number as big as this, because I think that, Troy has to prove that they can come into Manhattan and do something against K-State's defense. K-State, may not be as high-powered offensively as they were last week, but I think the defense translates. I'll take the Cats. I kind of like this one this week. I have real money on this game. We'll see. Troy can prove it. They lost guys too, though. I think K-State showed me enough last week to think that there's going to be a lot of early season buzz around the Wildcats, and this will be one of the few opportunities that we get good numbers to give them a bet. Paul, what do you think?
Well, this is the third easiest game to pick of all 10 games that we're picking today, and it would be KSU to cover for the 16.5. This is at a home game. There's something to prove. You're heading into the Big 12 season. I think this is the game that they will cover. I'm taking K-State.
All right, I'll go first on this next one. I put it on here because it's a little fishy. OU has something to prove this year. Last week, they absolutely did it. Just an absolutely perfect performance in the opener. They won huge. They get SMU coming into Norman this week. 15.5 points. After what we saw last week, there's something fishy here. I'm going to take OU, but man, you'd think that this line might be a bit bigger. Maybe it's because of last year. I nervously take OU to cover 15.5. Paul, what do you think?
I think this is the easiest game to pick of all the games that we have. I think this is the easiest game we have. 15.5 points. SMU, granted, hey, congratulations, you're going to the ACC, but you're not in the ACC yet. So I'm going to take Bama, or I'm sorry, I'm going to take OU. OU is going to probably cover by 25. I mean, that's kind of my guess. Yeah, I'm taking OU.
Tommy, it does seem like the easiest on paper, but it's a strange one to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to make it a clean sweep. I think the Sooners will cover that minus 15.5 number. I think that from what we saw a week ago with Brent Venables, you mentioned the phrase, they're on a mission. And I think that they are too. Now, I don't think that they're quite as talented as, Texas and K-State at the very top of the Big 12, but I think that they could make a little bit of a run in their final year in the conference. And they had a pretty dominant victory in week 1. I'm going to take them to cover that number against SMU this weekend.
Paul, you're up first again here with the game of the weekend in college football. Texas, Bama, a little SEC preview for the future conference foes, but two of the premier programs in the country as far as exposure and all these things. Bama, 7-point favorites at home against the Longhorns. What do you think?
Personally, this is going to be a pick that I make based upon what I hope. And I don't mind seeing Texas spanked. 7 points. might be pretty accurate. I think it's probably close. Texas is going to be better than we all think they're going to be. But I'm taking Bama, and I hope they spank them by about 21. I'm taking Bama.
Tommy, what do you think there?
It's a tricky one. I don't know. I mean, I know that everyone is very, very, very high on the Longhorns this year, as you know, this is kind of the year for them. I don't know if I buy it. I don't know if I fully, entirely buy it. And the fact that they're playing Alabama, and I know that we're not talking about Alabama as this dominant force this season. I know we're not talking about that this year, but to me, that number, it screams to me an Alabama cover. So I'm going to take the Crimson Tide -7.
Guys, I didn't see enough from Texas last week, for my liking. They're playing this game in Tuscaloosa. I do think Bama might be a national championship team this year. Like, I think they absolutely can compete up there at the top. I like Alabama quite a bit here to cover the 7. And it's, I hope I'm wrong. I'm not like most Big 12 fans. Like, I want to see Texas go to the SEC and have a ton of success. I don't think it's going to happen this week. I don't think they're there yet. I don't think they're ready to go to Tuscaloosa and win a game like this. Oregon taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech is insanely disappointed, and I think Oregon hung like 81 points last week. Tommy, you're up first here. You think the Red Raiders can bounce back +6.5 at home against that juggernaut in Oregon?
I mean, they need a bounce back, but I don't think it's going to happen. I know that when you're looking at Big 12 teams and their opening schedule, I'm not sure that any team has had it more difficult than Texas Tech to start the season. It was a letdown in that true road game against Wyoming, although I think a lot of people don't recognize how good Wyoming actually is under Craig Bowl. And, they don't get a ton of attention, but they're solid. So I don't think that was totally a surprise for Wyoming to get that double overtime victory against Texas Tech. That being said, the Red Raiders are playing an Oregon team that, they're good. And they are one of the best teams in the Pac-12. I'm going to take Oregon, and I'll take them to cover.
Yeah, look, Texas Tech couldn't ask for a better opportunity, to correct what happened last week. I don't think they're quite there yet. I do think Texas Tech's going to end up being pretty good this year. I think Oregon's going to end up being very good and is one of the in this loaded Pac-12. It's a great opportunity for Texas Tech. I'm excited for that reason, but I can't take them to cover. I can't take them with 6.5 points after what we saw last week. I'll take Oregon as well. Paul, what do you think?
Well, we did see what we saw, and it makes it very difficult to take Texas Tech. If I took Texas Tech right now, it would be an emotional pick. Because you want the Big 12 to cover and do well. And after last week's performance in the Big 12, it wasn't very good. And my Baylor Bears didn't help things at all, which I know Tommy's going to bring up some point, so I might as well bring it up first. But the point is that Texas Tech, we want them to do well. They are not going to cover 6.5 points, or even with 6.5 points, they're not going to win this bet. I don't want to take Oregon, but I'm taking Oregon.
All right, let's go to the NFL here for a few games. A big rivalry divisional game. Joe Burrow got his big contract yesterday. They go to Cleveland. The Browns getting 2 points here. Look, Burrow has struggled against the Browns in his short career. Like, that's his kryptonite. And I think the Browns are looking for an opportunity here. Cincinnati started just a little bit slow last year. I don't think Cleveland is going to end up higher than Cincinnati in the standings or anything like that. But I'm actually taking this week. I'll take the points here. Wow. And it's just that Burrow has really struggled. Go look at the numbers. Both Burrow against the Browns in general and Burrow in Cleveland. It's been rough for him in his career. So I'm going to try to do this the smart way because I love Cincinnati. I love Burrow. I love all those things. I think the Browns are going to cover this. 2 points. I'll take it at home. And I think I'll be on an island here. Paul, what do you think?
Well, that just every once in a while you shock me a little bit. I mean, after all, you've got, 216 million reasons why Joe Burrow is going to play well. I think right now that the way things are standing with regards to that division, with regards to the Bengals, with everything that's going on with that team, I don't know why you wouldn't. 2 points in this particular, even though it's at home for the Browns, I still think the Bengals cover. And I think they probably cover by a lot more than 2. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Bengals.
Yeah, you can have that island, Jacob, because, I mean, look, I think you said you wanted to be smart and take the points. 2 points, that's really nothing. I mean, if it was I would understand it more if it was like 6 or 7 or 8 points, maybe taking that point, for the Browns to cover that. But man, at 2, there's no way I'm going to take Cleveland to cover that. The Bengals not only will win, I think they're going to win by at least a touchdown in this opening game.
No, it's not. The smart thing isn't the smart thing is just to, Joe Burrow struggled he's 1-4 against Cleveland in his career, 10 touchdowns, but 5 interceptions. So we'll see if he can buck that trend. I think Nick Chubb goes nuts in this game, and Cleveland, they can make their statement here. And I hate it because I love Cincinnati. I don't like picking against them, and I don't want to root for Deshaun Watson. So, but we'll do it that way. All right, Niners Steelers. This is one of the more popular upset picks of the week that I've seen. A lot of people on the Steelers plus 2.5 at home here. Paul, what do you think? As the Steelers are the preseason darlings after Kenny Pickett looked great.
Here's my question: how long does Purdy last in this game? Does he play the first quarter before he gets hurt? Does he make it to halftime before he gets hurt? Does he make it to the fourth quarter? Well, before he gets hurt. The question is, how long does he play? I don't know that he finishes the game. We know he's not going to make it to the middle of the season. For that reason, although I would like to take the 49ers, and the 49ers can cover this. I really do believe they can, and they might. But as long as Purdy is the possibility of him getting hurt, which is like every snap, I'm going to take the Steelers.
All right. Tommy, what do you think?
Well, everybody is ready to crown the Steelers, and I don't understand why. I mean, I like Kenny Pickett. Don't get me wrong. I think Kenny Pickett is going to have a good season. He's got some really, really talented targets, and George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and all of that. I like the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin is always going to be a good coach and coach a good team. That's just the way that it's going to be. That being said, nothing has changed with the 49ers. And regardless about Brock Purdy, they've got fantastic skill position players. Nick Bosa is locked in. The holdout is done. They've got a pretty dominant defense. I don't buy this upset special. I'm taking the Niners, and I'll lay the 2.5.
Great.
Yeah, look, I get it. It's a coast-to-coast early game, but it's week 1. It's not week 4. That coast-to-coast early game doesn't have the same impact it does late in the year. And this is the healthiest we're going to see San Francisco probably all year, right? Whether at a variety of positions, they're healthy and ready to go. Tommy, I've been all over Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh this year, but San Francisco, this isn't the same kind of road game it would be late in the year. I'm on the Niners. I'll lay the points here. Brock Purdy has a lot to prove. So does Kenny Pickett. I mean, I like Pickett. I like his weapons, but he definitely hasn't proved it yet. So we'll see. I'll take the Niners and lay the points on the road. All right, Packers, Bears. Tommy, you're up first here. You like the Bears. You said this yesterday. Bears -1. You think they open with a bang?
Well, it's a pick'em game, right? At -1, basically, who's going to win the game. And I just don't know enough about the Packers to be able to feel confident in picking them. It sounds like Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson both have been dealing with injuries. And so who knows how effective they will be or if they will even play. You throw in there Jordan Love, who all bets are off. We don't know. We have no idea how effective he's going to be. It's a safer play to take the Bears. If that number was bigger, I might take a risk and jump on the Packers, but it basically a pick 'em. I know more about the Bears than the Packers. I'm confident the Bears are going to win this game.
I've been on record putting the Packers ahead of the Bears in the division. I think the Packers are a chance to be one of the sneakier teams in the NFC. I think their defense is good, and I think that'll help them here. We'll see on Jordan Love, but he's got the weapons. Christian Watson's banged up. That makes me a little bit nervous. Without knowing Christian Watson's status, that does make this a little bit harder. But I'll just sort of bet on the Packers defense a little bit. I'll take the Packers and take the point on the road. I'll probably regret it if Watson doesn't play, and we just don't know yet at this point. But as of Friday, I'll take the Packers. Paul, what do you think?
Put you on an island there, big boy. You got it. That's an island.
All right.
Listen, here's the thing. We don't know what quarterback play for the Packers is going to really look like, because I don't know. Jacob, I don't think you really know either. We've seen flashes.
Limited.
Yeah, it's been limited. And you see flashes here and there, but there's still a lot of questions because we don't know where they are quarterback-wise. We don't know quality over time with the Packers with quarterback play. I'm going to take the Bears as well, and I might as well at home take the point. What the heck? I'm going to take the Bears.
We talked about this next one yesterday with Chelsea Messenger. This feels like a trap to me. Eagles, Patriots. Eagles giving 4 points to the Patriots at home. And guys, I'm taking too many road teams here. I'm going to take Philadelphia. This is one I saw that I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand why this is where it is. Philadelphia seems to have done nothing but get stronger. Maybe it's the Super Bowl hangover thing. I'm not buying into New England. I'll take the Eagles. I'll lay the 4 in New England and take the Eagles there. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I read earlier in the week that Coach Belichick has broken up with his longtime girlfriend, and it's in the headlines. It doesn't seem to be a very happy situation, and we all know that what havoc women can reap in our lives, right, fellas? Right, fellas? Women.
Hey,
I'm gonna let you.
You're gonna be on an island here on this.
I'm not gonna answer that question.
Well, I was wanting to see what I could skid out of you two with regards to that, but anyway, my trap didn't work. You know something? I think there could be a lack of concentration with regards to Coach Belichick. I know that's a simplification, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Eagles as well. I really probably wouldn't do it if I hadn't read about his breakup with his girlfriend. I would probably take the Pats plus the 4, but in this case, fellas, I'm going to take the Eagles.
Well, I guess that's as good a reason as any. Tommy, what do you think?
I mean, I didn't know that we had transitioned into like Entertainment Tonight here all of a sudden talking about a breakup, but beyond that, I'm not going to talk about Bill Belichick's romantic life. I'm just going to tell you that the Philadelphia Eagles made the Super Bowl last year, and the Patriots are not a good football team. I just don't think that they are. Mac Jones, yeah, he's going to start, but it wasn't that long ago that we didn't know if he was going to start another game for the Patriots. They added Ezekiel Elliott to be a change of pace back behind Ramondre Stevenson. All right, cool. Maybe he'll get some goal line carries. I just don't see the weapons that the Patriots have doing anything against this Eagles defense. And then you add in Jalen Hurts. You add in the fact that they've got all of these weapons in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and others. I think it's going to be a fairly easy cover for the Eagles to cover that 4 number.
Yeah, again, trap. Something's trappy about that game. We'll find out. All right, last one here, fellas. Sunday Night Football, Cowboys, Giants. Giants getting 3.5 points at home. Paul, what do you think on this one?
Well, this is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm really interested in this game. You know, I think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to resurge this year. I like, with Dak back and being healthy, this is a team that's going to play pretty good. I mean, the defense is going to be excellent. I think for that reason, I'm going to go ahead, even though the Cowboys are on the road and the Giants are getting 3.5 points. I can't go against the Cowboys until I know who they are. And I think we'll know pretty quick. This will be a game. We'll then know who the Cowboys are. I am taking the Cowboys.
Tommy, Giants, points at home. Playoff team from a year ago.
Yeah, I had a feeling that I might end up on an island here, and we're going to wait to see what you pick here, but I'm going to take the Giants, and I'll take the points at 3.5 at home. I believe in Brian Dable. I'm a believer in him. It's year number 2 in the Brian Dable system, and I don't see a regression coming. I mean, really, nothing much has changed with this Giants team, and they were a playoff team a year ago. Danny Dimes, I think, will continue to thrive in Brian Dable's system. Saquon Barkley should be healthy and ready to go this season. And it's nothing against the Cowboys. I do think that the Cowboys will, ultimately be a playoff team. But I think the Giants are a playoff team also this season. So that being said, at home and getting 3.5 points, I'll take the Giants.
Cowboys historically they play fine on the road. The problem for me is the 3.5. If this was within 3, I'd be a little more comfortable with Dallas, but I'm not comfortable with it. I think Dallas's defense is going to play great all year long, but until we see this offense led by Tony Pollard, who's never done it before, they've got to be better in the pass game. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in Mike McCarthy and the offense there. I think the defense will be great. But I can't give 3.5 points to the Giants.
You're not going to give me an island? Oh,
no,
come on.
I'm taking New York. I'm the 3.5's too many points on the road in an opener. That is a Cowboys spread if I've ever seen one. There's no way the Cowboys should be 3.5 point favorites on the road at New York. That's a sucker deal. I don't like that at all.
As a son of West Texas, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Man. I thought I was
Paul,
giving an island there.
we could go poll 100 Cowboys fans, and it's a very pessimistic fan base right now. So I have no problem with that. Of course, I'm going to root for the Cowboys. I don't like the Giants, but I'm not giving 3.5 points to them on the first game of the season at home. No way.
Well,
I'll take the Giants there. All right. I told you I'm trying to be smarter this year. Trying to be smarter.
yeah, we'll see how that
Home
works for you.
team, divisional game, getting points like that. We'll see how it goes. We'll see that real soon. Well, let's come back. Let's have some quick reactions. We'll finish up reacting to the Chiefs game. Then we'll get some high school football a little later in the hour here on Sports Daily. It's Albracht, it's Castor, it's Savage on a Friday. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Glad to be with you on the program. Let's talk about the Chiefs, fellas, here before we get to some high school football talk a little bit later in the hour. Man, Paul, I know you're on the Lions. We've talked about, the issues for the Chiefs. I know you like the Lions. That's a game the Chiefs should have won last night. But I do think that it's okay that they lost it. It's okay that they lost that game because the Lions looked pretty good. And they did some things to also go win the game. As much as the Chiefs did things to lose the game, Paul, I think the Lions also did some things to go win the game. I'm not overreacting. I'm still not picking the Lions to win their division. But I do think they showed us that, look, they can go into a big environment and win a big game just like they did late in the year last year.
Yeah, but while I'm talking up Detroit and how much I like them and how much I like Dan Campbell, let's not forget that Detroit Lions did not score on offense as many points as the Chiefs did, with a lousy performance on offense by receivers dropping balls right and left and all that. I know you guys have covered that all the way through this whole show. But let's not forget that the Chiefs actually outscored the Detroit Lions. And with that being said, there are some things, though, that you can look and you can say you got to get better at. I'll give you an example. One of the concerns for me was pushed by the center of the defensive line by the Chiefs. You didn't get a lot. You got a lot from Detroit, by the way, which was part of the problem for Mahomes throwing the balls that he had to throw. Couldn't step up into the pocket. Good push versus no push. And we all know that that's partly, the returning of Chris Allen. Once he's back, you'll get some of that. You will. But the point is that, you drop those kind of passes, you look like a mediocre team, you're going to lose a game, even though you score more points. That pick six just killed them. And that pick six, by the way, you guys remember, I know you do, that was based upon a missed pass, a bobbled pass, a pass that went through somebody's hands. And then, boy, that's how that works. But that is just how that works. But, something I know a lot of people are writing off to a certain extent, the early start for the Chiefs. But something? This is still a decent football team. They'll have some elements back. But, man, I'll tell you what, when you lose a quality receiver like Kelsey, boy, it does make a difference, doesn't it, fellas?
It does. Tommy, Paul brings up a good point on the lines. Detroit's line was better, and Detroit did outgain Kansas City, and they ran the ball effectively, especially when they needed to late. Chris Jones's absence was felt, I think, both with no pressure on Goff, and Detroit was able to run the ball.
I don't really think it was, though. And that's something I've been thinking about since the end of the game, is that the biggest offseason narrative, the Chris Jones holdout, I don't think really mattered all that much in the overall outcome of the game. I really don't. I mean, that's not like, if you're power ranking the issues that Kansas City had in the game last night, the lack of Chris Jones, I think it's on the list, but it's not at the top of the list by any means. It's honestly, it's really not. It's really, they got pressure in other areas. I thought George Karlaftis had a pretty good game. Nick Bolton was all over the place. They were able to get some help from the secondary. Yeah, for sure. You have a hard time replacing the production that Chris Jones brings to the table. But if Chris Jones sat there in that suite last night and thought, man, it's going to be apparent that they need me badly, I don't think that really was the case at the end of the game. Sure, you need him, and I'm not going to say that he doesn't have an impact, because he absolutely does, but I don't think it was glaring. I don't think that, walking away from that game, you think, at least I don't think, like, okay, like they got to get him back on that field right now or the season is lost.
Good Lord.
Look, Detroit ran for 115 yards and the Chiefs had one sack in the game.
That's not Chris Chris Jones has never been a massive run stopper. No, like, that's not why they have him on the field.
Wait a second.
He's literally right in the middle. He is a run stopper. That's what he does.
He's there to get pressure. He's there to get pressure on the quarterback. That's what Chris Jones does. Okay. That's why he's a unicorn defensively, because Paul,
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. All I was
Paul, you're a defensive line coach, Paul.
Yeah,
how important is it to stop the run for a defensive tackle to draw blockers and clog that thing up?
He occupies two guys at one time. And anytime you have a single player who can occupy two players from the other team, advantage goes to your team. So I don't, and it's not all about when you're a three tech like you are with Chris Jones. It's not all about sacks. It's not all about number
Sure
of
it
tackles
is.
that you make. It's all
Sure it is.
about
Tommy.
Is Chris Jones? No. Does Chris Jones want to be one of the highest paid defensive players in the NFL to stop the run? Is that why he thinks he's garnering all of this money? No, it's because he can get to the quarterback in a way that other defensive tackles don't. That's why he wants to garner the amount of money that he thinks he's worth.
I
because
understand,
of
but Pro Football
the
Focus
pressure.
had him as the 6th best run-stopping defensive lineman interior in the NFL.
I'm not saying that he's not a good run stopper. I'm saying that that's not why he garners the amount of money that. Of course, that's
not
a
what I'm.
benefit
That's
of
not
the position
point
that
I'm
he's
trying
in
to
right
make.
now.
Of course, it's his pass rush, but his ability to stop the run had an impact with him not being there last night. Detroit ran the ball effectively. Chris Jones would make an impact there. That's part of what he does. That's part of what every good defensive tackle does.
And when you go ahead, Tommy. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, as you're looking at the game, in retrospect, and the Chiefs are 0-1. Are the Chiefs 0-1 because Chris Jones sat in a suite and didn't play the game? No. That's not why they're 0-1.
I can tell you
why they're 0-1.
They're 0-1 because they weren't as physical on both sides of the ball as Detroit was. Yeah.
They're 0-1 because their skill position players couldn't catch the dang ball. That's why they're 0-1.
Because it's a combination of things. I mean, it's all of these things contributed. And that's why I'm not overreacting to the Chiefs. All of these things went wrong, and they still probably should have won the game. And they didn't. So let's give Earl a word here before we get out of the segment. Earl on the IHOP hotline wants to chime in. Earl, I figured we'd hear from you today. What do you think of last night?
Real quick, I got to agree with your compadre there. Dana put pressure on like Chris Jones did. As far as stopping the run, when Detroit tried to deflate the ball in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go, we stood up and we stopped them and got the football back in Patrick Mahomes' hands. Look, it comes down to a simple thing. You got to be able to catch the football. But then also, all last year, on third, fourth, and short situations, Andy brings out his stupid gadget plays that are just insane. And guess what? 2nd and 1, we have it, and we end up punting. 3rd and 1, we run crap plays, and we end up punting. We need to take the bulldozer and, like the Philadelphia Eagles, put them in that push formation and get the one, because that formation is unstoppable. The fact is we couldn't run the ball on one down situations again, as we didn't last year. Even though we won a Super Bowl, it's still a problem. And 2, we couldn't catch the ball. The defense played great. They were the 2nd highest scoring team in the NFL last year, and their offense scored 14 points. And if you can't win with your defense just giving up 14 points in this day and age of the NFL, then you're not going to win many games. So take Chris Jones, package him up in a deal to get us some receivers that can actually catch a football.
Thank you, Earl.
And then the world will be better.
100%.
So the defense played.
100%.
The defense didn't let us down, man. The narrative, well, we knew Chris Jones's impact would be felt. Maybe they would be better. What are they giving up 7 points then? And that's absurd and out of context of what actually happened in the game. So, Chief on, it's just the beginning. We just won't go undefeated this year. We just got to get healthy and learn from it, man. Learn from it, because we got a hungry Jacksonville team that we put out of the playoffs that we got to go visit. So we're staring down 0-2 if we're sitting here looking at ourselves in the mirror and not coming up with a reflection of how good we can be.
Yeah.
So, Chief on.
There you go. I love that.
I look, this isn't some contest of whose absence was felt more, Kelsey or Jones. I think the reality is they were both felt.
Boy, you got that right.
It's not. It's not some power ranking or anything like that. And my point from the beginning of this show is it's fine. There's no need to overreact to this. It's fine. It's not that big a deal. And Chris Jones, I've said it for Tommy. I've been saying it for 6 months. He's not going to gain leverage here. The Chiefs don't have to have him to win a Super Bowl. Like, my thought on that has not changed for me to say him being on the field would have been better than him not being on the field last night.
There was not a single moment in the game last night that I blatantly thought, oh my God, if Chris Jones was here, the Chiefs would be blowing the doors off the Lions. That never entered my mind last night at all.
Never
you know why?
Happen.
You know why? Because the defense played pretty solid. Mike Dana
play pretty well.
Filled in pretty well. Karlaftis had a good game. Nick Bolton was incredible. Trent McDuffie carried the load. The defense was fine last night. without Chris Jones. There's no leverage. They didn't lose the game because he didn't play. So there's no leverage that Chris Jones
What bizarro
has.
world has happened? Tommy, you told me all summer that they can't win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say they couldn't win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones. I said that their chances are better with him on the field for sure. I never said they had to have him. But you know what? You get into the season and you watch one game without him there, and I don't think the absence was felt that much.
It doesn't. He's not going to gain leverage. I don't understand why he's holding out. That's the point. Like, he won't gain leverage here. I don't care if they go 0-6. He's not going to gain leverage enough for them to break their financial plan. We're going to talk a ton more about this next week, obviously. Let's come back. Let's preview some of the high school football. Tommy brought up a good point during the commercial there. We probably need to pick the Colorado-Nebraska game this weekend. We'll do that before the end of the show as well. A lot to cram in here to the final 20 minutes or so on the program. It's Sports Daily. Albracht, Castor, Savage. Matt Henderson will join us to preview the high school football week next. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Let's talk a little high school football for you here. We're getting Matt Henderson on that. He is getting tracked down. Paul, it was a good high school week in the first week. You were out with East, narrowly missing one a week ago. But look, what'd you think of the Aces there in the first week?
Well, there's a lot of kids that run real well. It's one of those situations, much like the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. Detroit won the game actually having scored fewer points, and that's what happened with us. We scored 4 touchdowns. Washburn Rural scored 3 touchdowns, but a pick six will kill you. A pick six will kill every football team that there's ever existed, and that's what hurt us, and we lost by 1 point. So it's one of those things, but a lot to build off of. Nobody's discouraged. That's the beautiful thing about high school football. You're on to the next week. You're on to bigger and better things. You're on to making yourself a better football player and a better team. And that's why high school sports are the greatest thing in this country, in my opinion.
All right, Matt Henderson joins us, Catch It Kansas, entering week 2. Matt, we just talked about East last week. They get Capon at home this week. Let's go there first. What do you think of that when Capon is, trying to contend for a state title this year? They really put it up on Wichita South, and that's one of the premier City League games this week here already in week 2.
Yeah, that matchup, I'm expecting a lot of offense. Like you look at Capon, Amari Elias, that dude is incredible running back. Probably going to hit 2,000 yards rushing again this year. I believe he has 3rd straight year doing that. So he's like that hard to stop. We saw they dropped 72 points on South last week, but East High, they can throw the ball as well as anybody. Deontay Mitchell, 3 touchdowns last week, over 240 yards passing against a very good Washburn Rural team that they almost beat, losing that game at last second on that blocked extra point. So I think that this game, last year East caught us by surprise when they beat Capon. 2022 is kind of a down year for the Crusaders compared to where expectations were. But this year, lofty as ever for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Capon is able to go out there and beat them again. But honestly, that feels like a game that could go either way to me.
Real quick, Matt, obviously the big storyline, Wichita Northwest, just what they did a week ago and where they are ranked now in Class 6A. It was impressive. It was an impressive statement for them a week ago against Bishop Carroll. Where do you think that win propels them moving forward?
Entering the year, I had them as my state championship pick in Class 6A, and I feel like that kind of really shows just how good this team can really be this year, because they have so many good athletes on that team. Like we knew about Jace Glasper, and he's now playing like a hybrid position as they move Jalen Mason, who's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the state, maybe in the country. We'll see how recruiting rankings shake out there. But class of 2026, see John Michael Fountain, Deuce Bohannon at running back, who's backing up Sincere Thompson, guys like Michael Lopez. Have a great defense as well. Holding Bishop Carroll, a team that we know can put up 7 points, is crazy. That team, they are probably going to be one of the more exciting teams we're going to watch all year. Highly recommend getting out to a game to watch them play at some point if you haven't yet.
All right, Hendo, we're on a quick segment today. Give us one more, maybe a little off the radar that you've got your eye on for folks to pay attention to today.
I don't know if it's off the radar, but I'm interested to see how Valley Center and Goddard go. There are 2 teams that last year kind of really had good turnaround seasons, both going from losing records to winning records a year ago. And both teams can really run the ball. Daymont Mucker with Valley Center, we've talked about him his second year in that program, but Goddard, they beat Campus last week without throwing a pass. Michael Johnson, a great bell cow running back there, a single wing now, kind of like what we see at Conway Springs and Garden Plain or in Pratt, stuff like that. So I think that game, not a lot of passing, but could be a lot of offense, and kind of be really curious to see how that one goes.
All right. Look, you've got catchitkansas.com, the Catch It Kansas show tonight at 10:35 on the KSCW. It's more than just football. There's some volleyball coverage as well at catchitkansas.com. Have a great week 2, Hendo, and we'll be back next week to get ready for week 3.
Thanks, guys.
There goes Matt Henderson. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up. It's a busy weekend on the networks here. We'll tell you where and when you can hear everything next on Sports Daily. All right, everybody, we've got lots to talk about Monday because we have another busy weekend. We'll get more into the Chiefs, but you've got the Royals tonight at Toronto. That's on KFH. You've got K-State taking on Troy. Pre-game coverage begins at 9 a.m. for the 11 o'clock kick. That's tomorrow on KFH. Then on Sunday, you get Royals at 12:30. You get Sunday Night Football at 6:30 for the Cowboys-Giants. Real quick, fellas, bonus pick. Colorado -3 at Nebraska. I'm taking the Buffs. Paul? Buffs as well, Paul says. Tommy, what do you think?
Colorado will make it a clean sweep.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter for our picks, but we did want to get that in. No Nebraska for me. All right, everybody. For Paul Savage, Tommy Castor, I'm Jacob Albracht. Thanks to Jad for producing. Congratulations to our winners. We'll see you Monday.